ultimamente uma discussão que impacta o nosso setor é a influência da inteligência artificial no mercado de capitais. Seu uso tem trazido um leque infinito de possibilidades, mas é importante reconhecer que esse avanço também nos coloca diante de desafios inéditos. Quais as responsabilidades e os limites dos players neste novo cenário? Para explorar o hype da IA, convidamos duas grandes autoridades no assunto. Eu quero pedir um aplauso para Clara Durodié, da Cognitive Financial Institute, e Gustavo Cunha, fundador da FinTrender. Lembrem que poderão ser enviadas perguntas sobre esse tema, só usar o QR Code que está no crachá de vocês.
So, welcome everyone, thank you very much. So let me describe myself. I'm a 50 years old male with gray, almost white hair, I would say. I'm wearing a t-shirt, a black t-shirt, jeans, and green shoes. And that's it. So we're going to discuss today about the impacts that AI has on us, and with an expert on that, Clara, that came from London to do that. The way that is going to move, I'm going to pass the word to Clara, and she's going to do a short presentation. Then we start a fire chat, and also I'm going to receive the questions that you have on that. So, Clara, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Gustavo. So first of all, I'd like to express how excited I am to be back in Brazil. And I love your culture, I love the country, and it's always a pleasure to return. So thank you very much for the invitation. I really, really appreciate it. In terms of describing how I look, I'm 5'10", brunette or blonde. We couldn't discuss and decide in backstage. So I'm 5'10", white woman, wearing a black top, gray trousers, and silver shoes. I think that should describe how I look today, right? Well, thank you for that. So, I'm here today to share with you some of my thoughts that I have distilled primarily through my 10-year career in artificial intelligence in financial services, but also to capitalize on the research that forms the backdrop of the second edition of my popular book, Decoding AI in Financial Services. I just finished writing it. It was published. It was launched 48 hours ago in Amsterdam. And I have a special lens to look at what has been going on in AI. And I'm here to provide you with an independent perspective. Understanding AI hype is exceptionally important to us in our industry. And I speak as a former practitioner. I used to work in asset and wealth management in financial services in London and Luxembourg. And with that experience in mind, I'd like to share a few thoughts, and also the 10-year experience in AI in financial services. So we need to understand what is the shape of AI hype that we are experiencing today. So I'm going to put to you that there are three main strands. One is that AI has become a dominant topic in the technology discourse. The media is very excited, is full of speculation as well, but speculation always comes with excitement, and we have seen this with other inventions or innovations. So for instance, in the United Kingdom, in the first industrial revolution, there was a railway excitement. There was a lot of excitement. Everybody was just willing to think and dream about that technology. We're having now the same thing. In the Netherlands, the tulip mania, again, it was another fascinating story of of excitement and speculation. The second strand of the AI hype that we're experiencing is the forecasts that we see associated with what AI can deliver. The transformative potential across industries. Now, I'm going to put to you that that is a hype. And it's hype because a lot of the narrative lacks the technical understanding behind different types of AI being used. So when I hear stories about how AI is going to make us so wealthy that we're not going to work for the rest of our lives ever and spend all the time on the beach, not going to happen. I really don't think it's going to happen. It's just impossible. The technology, the tech component of this hype is not going to carry us through. The third and the final leg of this AI hype is about the ambitious promises and claims. There are grandiose visions of AI achieving human-level intelligence and solving global complex challenges. The piece on the human-level intelligence, I put to you that maybe it's possible to achieve it, but not under the current iteration of AI. It has to be, specialists confirm, it has to be a different type of approach from a technical standpoint. Solving global challenges, I mean, we've heard stories how AI is going to solve climate change, how AI in the UK is going to solve the productivity problems that we have. And I keep telling people we need to fix our roads in the first place in the UK. AI is not going to do it for us. So we need to solve the basic problems and then perhaps think of what we can do with it. There are exaggerated expectations, but also real capabilities. Image recognition in 2024 is almost 90% accurate. And it's quite something. 10 years ago, we were not there. Natural language processing, 80%. We're not there. Not even 5 years ago. But what is very interesting is the 20% associated to autonomous decision-making. Autonomous decision-making is an area which should concern us in financial services particularly, because we are moving in a place where this technology is gaining autonomy. We are already in the UK talking about how we perhaps should create AI agents for every single one of our customers, and their AI agent will negotiate financial products with banks' AI agent. So autonomous decision-making is a big area, 20% at the moment. General intelligence, overhyped, but I reckon it can be different. Sentient behavior, only 2%. We're not there yet. In 2016, experts predicted 47% of jobs will be automated by 2025. Didn't happen. 2018, AI-powered chatbots were claimed to revolutionize customer service. What did banks do in the UK? They went head first and they deployed chatbots. The result is that the customer service in the UK banks is just abysmal. They're losing so much business. It's absolutely unbelievable. 2020, AI systems were claimed to outperform humans in medical diagnosis. What did happen? Radiologists decided that they're not going to pursue a career in radiology because AI is going to read all the X-rays. Where are we now, 4 years later? There is a clear shortage of radiologists because AI is not good at doing that. And you really don't want to be treated based on that experience alone, that decision alone. 2022, AI-driven autonomous vehicles were still causing accidents. We were promised, and a lot of hype around autonomous taxis. We're not there yet. Slow adoption, a lot of work. AI, the Department of Autonomous Vehicles with Apple has been shut down, as you know. 2024, AI-generated content creation tools were claimed to disrupt traditional marketing and advertising. True, that happened, but the quality of what happened is rather questionable. So we need to understand that kind of nuance. 2026, we are promised that we will have an AI personal assistant in our phones. That might be possible. Apple has signed a contract with OpenAI to do just that, put it in our iPhones. Remains to be seen whether that's something people really want to use. Ethical consideration. As we move forward, this becomes an absolutely critical area, not just for financial services, but for every single company trying to be meaningful in AI adoption. Algorithmic bias is the data, the system is laced with it. Gender bias under this big algorithmic bias headline is still in the data and no one can remove it. So like big problems there. Privacy and data security. We have no clarity as to how responsibly to collect data, to store it, and to use personal data in financial services. This is absolutely crucial. The regulators are watching us everywhere I go on this planet. We have the same conversation about what regulators should expect. Transparency and explainability. Developing AI systems that are transparent in their decision-making processes can be and should be easily understood by the end users. We are in the age of black box AI with generative AI. No one can explain how it works. AI safety and control. We need to establish robust safety protocols and control mechanisms to prevent AI systems from causing unintended harm, of behaving in unpredictable ways. What do we see from the Gen AI today? We see precisely that. Finally, ethical frameworks, ethical guidelines and frameworks are becoming absolutely crucial for teams to be able to understand where to start from and what they need to do. The way the shaping of public perception is going is pretty much in four main categories. The first one is the sensationalist headlines. For instance, a headline claiming AI will replace jobs within a decade. That sells magazines, clickbites, marketing is happy, everybody's happy. But in decision-making roles, we need to exert a little bit more critical thinking. There are also balanced news that reports the positives and the negatives. There's a lot of fear-mongering happening now, which is the end of the world may happen with AI, when AI goes rogue. If we leave it and we just go the current way, maybe we're just going to end up there. So that's why we need extra care now. Because we are the first generation to deal with AI. No one in the history of mankind has ever done that. But we are also the last one to shape what the future is going to look like with AI. Because once we shape today, it is going to stay with generations, with tens of decades ahead. It's very difficult, if not impossible, to walk back once you got it wrong. And finally, the factual infographics are very useful to be able to actually distill the key points and inform people on data AI integration and adoption. And finally, this is my final slide. Here are 5 things which I brought to you today, which would enable you to think a little bit more balanced about AI hype. First one, acknowledge the strengths and the limitations. Explain also the elusive economic growth driven by AI. It's elusive. Address immediate ethical concerns. This is why this is so important, this point. The winning strategy of the future with AI rests on three main points: ethics, safety, and security. You don't do these three things, they're going to start haunting you later on. The writing is on the wall. Promotes a balanced innovation outlook. No pink lenses and everybody's happy innovating away, forget about the risks. And also encourage a nuanced media reporting. And this is to summarize, this is indeed the last slide, this is to summarize what I've just said earlier. So the winning strategy is ethics, safety, and security. And the understanding of the enterprise AI. So when you are getting ready to adopt it in your organization, you have to understand quite three main areas: business of AI, how do you make money with it? Governance of AI, how do you keep it safe? Geopolitics, what does it mean to run your entire digital construct and life as a business on AI? And to be able to do all that thinking, you need to have critical thinking skills. So with that, I'm going to just wrap up here. I'm going to leave for questions and discussions, and we're going to move to having the fireside chat.
Hello. Thank you very much for the presentation, Clara. I just took note of a lot of things that you said, and there are discussions that we are really having nowadays in companies and as a person on AI about how an autonomous decision maker AI would work, right? You said that 20% of it's on 20% now, so it's kind of amazing. I didn't expect that to see the numbers so high yet. But there's one point that you said here was about ethical AI and the idea that we need to do that's correct now, because otherwise we could have, let's say, not a good future. Why do you think that we should correct or should think about this ethical AI now that we are really on the beginning of this, at least for us, the whole population, to interact with AI?
Well, so first of all, I'd like to share with you some of the research we did. We looked at the cost of correcting wrong algorithms or the cost of retiring them 3 years into live. So after they were launched, 3 years down the line. The cost is 1,000 times more than the cost in production. So essentially, the summary is at least that. The summary is like for every single dollar spent in production to create these systems, you need to spend 1,000 times more to retire them or correct them or just ensure that whatever you replace them with is going to be sort of half decent. So that's the big cost, huge. In addition to the cost element is the ethics, safety and security, the 3 points. And the reason is, I told you earlier, we are the last generation to be able to shape the future of AI. And it's so serious. And I ask people, how do you think your future with AI is going to be? And they go like, yeah, it's going to be super interesting and very exciting. And I go like, okay, here's a question for you. Every time you build something or buy something or adopt it or design a new product, just ask yourself this question and try to give yourself an honest answer. The question is, knowing what I know about AI, do I want my children or my family to be subjected to it? So knowing what I know about AI, that I'm bringing in the business, building it, acquiring, do I want my children to be subjected to it? So one of the things, I'm going to give you a simple example of this kind of thinking, was it's a UK bank, doesn't matter the name, we use it. a part of a portfolio of other banks we use for business. And I was just scrolling through my iPhone one day, and I see that this particular bank app is tracking me. I had no idea. I wouldn't have consented to it, but they're tracking me. And as I happen, I know the people who are in the team that built it, and I asked them, why did you do it? And you know the answer? Yeah, but that's good because we're building a behavioral profile. And I've asked them, do you want that to your children to be subjected to it? Oh, of course not. But why do you build it? Why do you put it in there? What's the business value to it? Yeah, but that's good. It's new data points. We just like running through the model. What's the business value to it? No one was able to answer this. So this is why ethics, this kind of thinking, what we're going with this technology, long-term thinking, enables us to make the right resource allocations. Because it's a very expensive business to adopt.
And linking this point to autonomous AI, so that means that if we don't do the things right now at the beginning, at a certain point, we're going to have some autonomy on the system, right? Because the system will feed itself,
yeah.
And that could lead to, let's say, a really wrong way on the way that we see the future. So talking about these autonomous systems that we are seeing, how far we are on these discussions about autonomous, how autonomous the systems can be nowadays, and how should we kind of try to regulate or avoid for us to have a lot of, let's say, a really scary future on this side?
So the story of autonomous systems is that we already have them. A couple of months after ChatGPT was released, there was this auto GPT, completely autonomous, was able to run on its own. Now, the interesting thing is that what they're doing now, there are online courses led by some esteemed AI researchers, where they are teaching people how to build autonomous systems interacting with each other autonomously. So I gave you an earlier example about how they're looking to create AI consumer autonomous systems that you can go and buy them just as you open a bank account. You buy them and you use them to negotiate your financial affairs with your financial services suppliers, with your bank, with your mortgage, with whoever, right? Thing is that with these autonomous systems, when they interact with each other, they create a multi-agent ecosystem. And to be able to have this statistical models interact with each other in a social way, in a ethical way, within the regulations parameters, you need to teach them how to do that. And that's very complicated. I spoke to a professor who dedicated his entire life to teaching social skills for the systems. And after an entire life of work, he said, we still can't do it. We can't do it responsibly. It's just very complicated. So if we envisage a world where we allow this autonomy to go out of hand, it's already being shaped that this system will operate and decide between themselves. And that is the definition of chaos in my books, but also chaos in the regulatory financial services books, I would imagine. So that's my biggest concern.
Yeah, and talking about regulation at this point, I think it's also important because I came from let's say the crypto blockchain world, which is more tangible to the regulators, I think, because you can see the numbers, you can see the flows. When you're talking about AI, it's not that tangible. So it's difficult for the regulators to deal with that, in my view. That's my perspective as well. I would like to listen to you about that question. For the regulators, what weighs more, let's say, the risks to leave AI to run the systems or to go to the autonomous AI, or the benefits that it can bring to the economy? In your view, how can the regulator balance these two things?
I think the starting point of the conversation is, one, AI literacy, to truly understand how the systems operate and what the limitations are, like technical limitations. And if you really spend time to listen to people who do this kind of work, the limitations are so clear and so limiting that puts so many things to risk, to a point where you, as a business decision maker, you have to wonder, okay, there are business risks we need to take because that's the nature of the business. There are risks you need to take, you know. But for every single risk we take, we need to understand the downside, the shape of that risk. And for some risks, it's just not worth taking them. And I'd like to see more conversation around this, like real down-to-earth conversation. How does the technology look like? How can we control it? Is it safe? What are the limitations from a technical standpoint?
Okay.
And forgive me 1 second, to answer your question, from AI literacy, we need to move from a regulatory perspective, I would imagine, to just go and ask, what kind of tasks can we afford this level of risk? And once that is decided, then one needs to go into the toolbox of different AI models and types of algorithms and say, okay, for this task, we're not going to use large language models, although it's very tempting, but they're hallucinating and they're not suitable for this particular task. Say, portfolio management or making investment decisions on people's pension, retirement savings, or, you know, that kind of life-altering decisions. So for certain tasks, one needs to decide what kind of algorithms to use and what kind of risk they can afford and willing to take.
Okay. So just remember, everyone, that we have some time for questions here. So if you have any questions, just put on the systems that I'm going to read that during this conversation here. So I would like to run, let's say, one question to you guys before we continue here. Please raise your hand. Who is using some kind of AI on your daily basis today on your job? Please raise your hand. So it's probably 30–40% of the people. So I would expect more, to be honest. But on your personal life, I think that's even more, right? Who has ever used ChatGPT here? Please raise your hand. Almost everyone, right? Yeah. So that's the kind of thing that we are seeing, that the systems are really among us. So we are using it. So that's it's just a matter of how exponential it can get. So that's one of the points that you said. I have some questions here that I'm going to run on it. So the first one, Clara, is that balancing hype and revolution. How you compare the impacts of AI to other revolutions such as internet, computers, advanced chemicals, and steam engine and everything. So are we really having the same kind of revolution that we have when they created the machines or the internet sometimes ago, or is it different in your view?
I really don't think it's much different than the internet. About a month ago, there was an article in The Economist where they looked at ways that the internet we're using today is, in The Economist words, a precarious foundation to our digital construct. So I think in many ways, the internet is the best example of how convenience, speed, excitement has launched us into doing things and depending on this construct called the internet for everything, failing to appreciate or deal with the safety problems that it has. So instead of dealing with them when the internet was in nascent stage, we have to deal with those problems now, and they're so complicated. If you have time to look in the archive of The Economist, that makes an interesting read. Actually, it's so valuable that I even mention it in my book. So it's very important to have this kind of understanding of the safety of this foundation we're building, our financial services industry, our lives, our futures, everything else. So most certainly, we see similarities between that revolution and this one.
Okay. I think that there's one side of this revolution that maybe it's different. That I think it's my personal view. The others were more under our control. So I think that we go for this autonomous AI, we lose control of that. So and that's a risk. That's the thing that you were saying, right? So it starts the same, but the end can be really on a different scenario. And I have two questions here that more or less about that. So one question that asks more or less like, what's the state of this technology on the financial market, and what's the scenario, the danger scenario that we see for the financial markets about AI? And there's another question asking for some examples on if we go wrong, how this wrong scenario can be. How wrong can it be?
It can be very wrong. So I'll give you an example which actually happened. And it affected financial markets in the United States. It was about probably April 2023, from memory, April, May, when someone generated a fake photo of the Pentagon on fire. And they posted on Twitter, and verified Twitter accounts picked up on that photo and redistributed, and the news spread like fire everywhere, as it does. And obviously, because we train a lot of trading algorithms on social media for sentiment analysis and just pick up on this, sentiment movements, those algorithms were instructed to sell automatically, right? Because everybody thought, like, this is another 9/11, the markets are going to crash, we might sell now. So what we noticed was a dip in the market, which recovered as soon as the market identified that it was just a fake news or fake photo. So things can go wrong, but within that space of how many minutes, we don't know what happened. I would hope that someone may have looked into it. Probably they did. I don't have any knowledge of it. But things like this can go completely out of control. And just like this morning, I'm going to share with you what happened this morning. It's just not AI related. 5:30 in the morning, I'm jet lagged. I couldn't sleep, woke up, tried to have a glass of water. The lights went out, like completely off. And all of a sudden I looked outside through the window, and I saw the building next to the hotel was just dark. Everything was dark. And that moment I thought, what if that happens when we run on AI everything? What control do we have? What's the backup option? The hotel had a backup option, their own generator, rather analog, independent of the network. So it's things like this we need to think about. What happened if I was in a lift, for instance, and I would be stuck in the lift, no electricity. The whole building block is just off. So things like this we need to really spend time to think about.
It's always good to have a backup, right?
Yeah.
Hotel, right. And
if it's analog, it's even better.
Yeah. So there's some questions about the ethical side of AI here, and there's one interesting question asking, who should define what's ethics? Is it the regulator? Is it the market? Is it the companies?
The question is, whose ethics, right? Because what's ethical in one jurisdiction, it might not be the same in a different jurisdiction. This is why I believe that every jurisdiction should design financial products or financial digital constructs according to their own values. And this is very important because when you do that, you look at your culture values, your moral values as a nation, and you go, we're going to encode those into our digital life. And it's not this, I can't repeat enough. Going into AI adoption is not just about building AI and just go with it and do it. It's about encoding the values that define us as humans into that digital construct. In our industry, trust is what defines everything we do. Financial markets work on trust. Clients with us work on trust. The currency of trust is our main currency in which we trade. And we need to be able to encode all that into this digital construct. In financial services in London, we are called the City of London, primarily. And that used to be the driver of the Industrial Revolution. They made the entire world of British Empire work. And I asked a family friend of ours, who's like the second trader registered in the UK. And I said, like, how was it like when you were trading on the trading floor, you know? And now we have all these screens helping us. And he goes like, it was very simple in our time, Clara. We had a logo in our industry. My word is my bond. And indeed, if you go now in London, as you enter the limits of City of London, which is an independent entity within London itself, that's the city motto. My word is my bond. In other words, trust me, because everything I say, I'll do. How do we encode those values of trust in the new digital construct? 2 weeks ago, I was in Oxford speaking at an event, and one of the people in the audience, she came to me to say that she's studying the ethics of loyalty in the Renaissance. How the traders in the Renaissance era were working and how would they build trust and loyalty. Very interesting topic, but this is Oxford, you know, it's like you hear all sorts of interesting themes. And I said to her, talk to me about this origin of the word bankruptcy. You know where the word comes from. It's from the old Italian merchants. When someone would just go there in the local market with everything they had to sell, money or whatever, they would put it on a bench, banco, on a bench. And if that person owning the bench would break the promise or the trust of their customers, someone or their customer would come and just break the bench. Banco rota, I think that's what she said. Broken bench, broken trust. That's where we come from. How are we going to do that in a digital construct?
And that's why, in my view, there's a huge intersection between blockchain and AI in this sense, because it's the way to secure, let's say, the data, to make sure that the data is really there and it's correct. Blockchain can help that a lot. There's another question here about, let's say, real usage or already people that are companies that are using AI, and he asks, or he or she asks, what's the use case that you've seen in the last months on the financial market that most impressed you? The one that you said, come on, that's a really good usage of AI in the financial market.
I think I'm going to go back to my roots as an analyst, and I would say one of the things that used to really, take a lot of time, and it was the job of an analyst. It was to read the accounts footnotes. like quarterly accounts, and then you just try to go through them and just always in the footnotes, accountant notes, you would see like the good information. So I reckon for systems that are well trained on that kind of detail and ability to dive correctly, accurately, 100% of time in that data, I think that's a very valuable way of unearthing a lot of valuable information for then investment or portfolio managers to make decisions based on that. But again, I can't stress enough is the accuracy component that needs to be 100% all the time.
So I think that as we've seen, there's a lot of people using that nowadays on the corporate side, and most of people using it on the personal side. But what would be your advice to the people that are here, the C-levels of Brazil, in terms of how to deal with AI, how to implement AI in your company on a safe way?
Well, first of all, you need to think how you train it and how you build confidentiality guardrail around your data. So that's a big conversation. There are some interesting systems already built for our industry, and I went through all of them. I put them in a book because they're quite useful. And starting with Bloomberg GPT, that's a good point to start. Another way to do things the right way is to appreciate, especially with your personal data, but also with the company data, appreciate that there is a confidentiality problem. Think of the systems as your gossiping neighbor. If you tell them a secret about you, it's going to just like spread it everywhere. So that's, you don't know where the data goes. So that's the confidentiality component is very important. So whatever you put in those systems, especially when you use them to write things about your personal life, try to encode the sensitive information. Everything you put in those web browsers, they typically can be shared and they stay in the memory. These systems now have memory, and that's something to keep in mind. And there are a lot of considerations regarding the data strategy at the corporate enterprise level, data strategy, safety, the governance piece. So yeah, the type of algorithms you use. So all of this has to work together in what I call an AI strategy, but it has to be joined up and well thought through. This is another, possibly is the right point to say, when you hear people say, we're going to use AI, where are we going to start? With the lowest hanging fruit. You must have heard that many times. The lowest hanging fruit. That's not the right way to go about it. You don't have a long-term strategy. You're just wasting money on the lowest hanging fruits. You don't know whether it's going to be meaningful at the end of your complete reorganization of your business model with this technology, which, by the way, it's part of the AI strategy.
We are seeing this discussion about, let's say, this hype of AI. That's the theme of our discussion here. And when you're talking about the C-level people, there's always a discussion, okay, you should implement AI in your company because it's mandatory. It's kind of everyone should work on AI, say that it's work on AI. How do you think that people should deal with that? AI is for all the companies to be implement it for all the companies, or there are some sectors or some companies that maybe doesn't make sense to implement that?
Well, there are two components to this. So first of all, and I speak from knowledge, at the board level, the job of board directors is to, amongst other things, is risk oversight. So what I've seen in the past 10 months is just went out of the window in most cases. Forget about risk oversight. We need to just do it because everybody else does it. whoever works in investment management, they know that you can be very successful when you're a contrarian investor. And this is my background, and I learned the trade from one of the most talented contrarian investors out there. So try to just, think, if everybody does it, what's your advantage? How do you stay on top of everything and be different than the rest of the world? So that's point number one. Second point, risk oversight should never leave you, because that's your job and that's your responsibility. The third point is to enable a level of AI literacy for everyone in the organization to learn about this. And I keep saying everybody needs to be literate in AI, from starting with the chairman of the board all the way to the receptionist. Once you do that, there is a lot of benefits, which I have, we don't have time now, but I've unpacked it many times. So I think in a nutshell, that's how the thinking should go, rather than head first, let's do it because everybody else does it. There are certain certain business models that do not warrant this kind of risk, at least today, in this current construct where we have hallucinations, systems are not reliable, there are black boxes. Things like private wealth management, that requires a lot of understanding. Autonomous decision-making on portfolio management, not really. So these are examples where perhaps,
Okay, we run out of time, so I think that we need to stop now. Thank you very much, Clara, for your insights and the discussion and everything that you bring. And let's move for the next one. Thank you, guys.